The first lesson was the key to actually personal life was, don't go for the big car or the big house until you can afford it, which meant no debt. You actually buy what you can afford to pay for and take on no debt. And that was a great lesson that we took on in our personal life for sure. And actually in Blue Label, up until we bought CellC, we were a very cash generative business. We had lots of cash in the bank at any given time, around 2 billion rand actually. Um, Very capex light. So our model in business and life was very similar.
In 2001, Brett and Mark Levy founded a company called Blue Label Telecoms, pioneering a concept of virtual distribution of airtime in South Africa. At the time, it was completely innovative, and it didn't take them long to take that company to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, which I think they were the youngest, but Brett will tell us in a moment, CEOs of any listed company. They were also very highly acknowledged as entrepreneurs in the EY competition. And I've walked a lot of that journey with them. So it's such a pleasure today to pick up with Brett when he's through the fire. Well, maybe after some years of a decision to invest in CellC that might finally be paying off. Hey, Brett, it's been quite a story, quite a journey. And maybe I want to start at the beginning because there aren't that many couples, brothers, who are listed, who run listed companies or created listed companies. The only other one I know in South Africa are the Van der Walt brothers, Faan and Dirk, with We Buy Cars, which is also a very highly rated business. And I guess you got to go back to how you and Mark grew up. I mean, was there a family household that said, "Okay, guys, I want you to be entrepreneurs," from your mom and dad?
Morning, Alec. How are you, first of all good, I hope. Yeah, I
Of course
think
we are.
so. Unfortunately, we lost our father when we were young. I was 5 years at the time, and my brother was 8 years. We come from a very small town called Delmas, which I think more people know about now than definitely before we listed. And I think it was really just a traditional household. It wasn't easy. We had a great childhood, but you know, money was hard to come by in our family, and I think we were entrepreneurs from a young age. And my mother used to joke that if she didn't bolt it down in our house, then Mark and I would sell it, which is probably half true because we probably would have sold it if we could have. But I think it was really just a great family household, and the intention of Mark and I always doing something together. So we agreed when we were very young that we would, whatever we did in our life, we would do 50-50. There was never a contract between us. There's still not a contract between us. And everything we've ever done has been on a 50-50 partnership, friendship, and brotherhood. So it's been an amazing journey. It's been an amazing journey to do it with your brother. And it's got its highs and its lows, and that's just part of life. But I wouldn't want it any other way. It's been absolutely amazing, eh?
And the whole decision to start Blue Label, where did that all come from?
So we were doing separate things at the time, actually. So I was trading in car radios and televisions. Mark was trading in glass. And then in 2001, we decided to bring we had two companies at the time together. And we were sitting at our accountants' offices. And they had a bottle of Blue Label, which we thought was the most amazing thing ever, to actually see a bottle of Blue Label, never mind drink a bottle of Blue Label. And we decided there and then to let's call our company Blue Label Telecoms. And we went and we registered it thinking we probably got no chance. And we registered Blue Label Telecoms. It was good. And the only complaint we ever got was from Mari Biscuits because of their Blue Label Mari Biscuits. And we made a deal with them. They wouldn't sell telecoms and we wouldn't bake confectionery cookies. So we did a good deal and we were done.
And just your relationship with money getting into that. You did say that that you guys were entrepreneurial or trading from a very early age. What did you learn, say, from your mom? I mean, sadly, with your dad, as you explained, he wasn't around. What did you learn from her about a relationship with money that you've taken right through to today?
Sure, she taught us a lot, actually. She unfortunately also passed away 2 years ago. So we've had, unfortunately, a bit too much tragedy in our life. But the first thing she taught us was no debt. She said, only buy what you can afford. And when you sell something, make sure you sell it at a profit. So when you tell someone you're selling it at cost price, just make sure you're buying it below cost. I'll never forget her words because they were great words, actually. So I think the first lesson was the key to actually personal life was, don't go for the big car or the big house until you can afford it, which meant no debt. You actually buy what you can afford to pay for and take on no debt. And that was a great lesson that we took on in our personal life for sure. And actually in Blue Label, up until we bought CellC, we were a very cash generative business. We had lots of cash in the bank at any given time, around 2 billion rand actually. Um, Very capex light. So our model in business and life was very similar. And then, of course, the rest that comes with it. She said, always be genuine, always be honest and fair, but be hard. And I think, that's really what we are. I think we negotiate hard in business. I think we good negotiators, but in the end, I think we're fair. We want a good deal for you, and we want a good deal for us. And we found that in time, if the deal works for both of us, well, then they've always been successful deals. When the deal is more in favor of one than the other, somewhere along the line they break. So I think that was a really great lesson, and it's one that we definitely still till today do. I think we're a lot fairer than people think we are in the market. I think the size and maybe the reputation precedes us some of the time, but I think for most of it, we're really fair. And if you will look back at all our deals, big ones and small ones, I would think that you'd find that it was a win-win situation for both us and whoever we did it with.
It's so interesting, given that background, that you did go and pay 5.5 billion rand for CellC, and most of that was debt, and you took on huge amounts of debt when you got this very challenged cell phone operator, which many people thought could have been the end of Blue Label itself. So what motivated you there, or were you pushed into it by shareholders and the board?
Definitely not pushed into it. I think so. Really, starting back at the beginning, our concept of the prepaid market, and when we told people, as you rightfully say, in 2001 and we listed in 2007, no one actually understood what we were doing. For a lot of it, we were ahead of the time. We launched the concept in India, literally. We launched the concept in Mexico, literally. Mozambique, Nigeria, DRC. So for a lot of it, we were way ahead of our time, which sometimes is good and sometimes is not good. But really, what it was that the world was going to go into a pay as you go world. That doesn't matter what the product is, every product would be offered in a prepaid world. No matter what kind of person you're on, what kind of capability you have, you would be in a prepaid world. And that's definitely come to fruition. And it's actually just beginning. I know it sounds crazy, but every product, you, every person, it's just all about banking the unbanked. It's about banking the banked, and really about how people transact into the future. So that model, without it coming across arrogantly, I really think that model we got spot on. And it shows today, because Blue Label, thank God, has been a really strong business. Because if it wasn't strong, to the point I'm going to get to now with CellC, you're right, we would have been in a lot of trouble. But Blue Label kept delivering. Blue Label kept on producing the cash, and it gave us the ability. So why do we buy CellC? I think the actual concept of having a network in artillery was definitely the right concept. What happened is the execution wasn't as good as the execution should have been. So if you ask me, would I do it again? I think for shareholders in the end, it will be okay. I think for me, I'm not quite sure if I would do it again. It's definitely taken 8 years of my life of ensuring that we get this back on track. But to have a network and the spectrum and how networks actually operate and what value they add into the future, because the spectrum and the backhaul, if you want to call it that, and the connectivity and how everything is going, networks are extremely powerful, extremely, 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 and they come in under different pressures for different reasons now, and we can have that as a separate conversation later, maybe. But the moral is to buy it and to put CellC into artillery was the right move. Unfortunately, what happened is the actual game plan and the execution when we started it, and mainly was to build our own network and a few other things that sat with it, was the wrong execution. And what we found very shortly after buying it is that we were on the back foot. Absolutely. I mean, it's quite amazing how quickly we found ourselves on the back foot, and that we really had to dig ourselves out. We believed in the model, we believed in the right model, and it had developed over time. And the model is really simple. It's a capex light model, right? Which I think the world is going to, by the way. You'll find everywhere in the world, there will only be one or two networks that build networks. And even then, they might join networks. The rest are going to be spectrum pooling, spectrum selling, roaming, if you want to call it mocking. And that's really where it's going to, right? Because the days of having a better network are done. That was in the beginning. Who could build it the fastest? Then whoever built it the fastest was the biggest, and then who could get the most customers, and then it was distribution, right? And I think you've seen this whole industry go round and round, and now what you're in a position was networks have to be built by one or two companies in a country, maybe even one general one for all of them, and then how everyone plugs in is where it's all going to, and I'm absolutely convinced of that. And so that's where our model started evolving, and we started getting it right. So I think in the end, it's going to work out for Blue Label. I'm absolutely convinced of that. By the way, um, I think we've had a lot of pain for the last, as I said, 7 or 8 years, or mainly 6 or 7 years to get to this position. But in the end, it will be good. It will be good for Blue Label. It will be good for CellC, and very good for the country, actually. I think what it's done, it's kept competition in the country. It's kept competitive in the actual industry itself. Yeah, so hopefully it turns out good.
What was the lowest point?
The lowest point for me personally was actually when we wrote off the investment. So we had invested 5.5 billion rand. As you said, we had used cash resources of around 2.5, 3 billion of our own, and we went to the market for 2.5, 3 billion rand at the time, which, by the way, we got quite easily. Just, I mean, and the reason we got it easily was because up until then, what we had promised, we had delivered. So, we were liked on the market, we were trusted on the market, and we went to raise the money, and we raised it pretty easily, or very easily. And then 2 years later, when we had to write it off, I think for me, what it was, which was a great lesson, and I think it's just a good lesson which I try to teach my kids and people out there in Blue Label at least, is, up until 2017, things were actually a little bit too easy for us. And I use that in inverted commas, is we were doing really well. The market was growing. We were in it early. We were leading it in a lot of ways. For most of it, whatever we were touching was really working with small little things. And then all of a sudden you get this massive setback, and you really have to recalibrate everything. You got to go back to the drawing board. You got to have a look at every line item again. You got to refocus the business. You got to refocus people. And I actually think it's a good lesson. For that, I would never change, by the way. Quite interesting, and no matter what it's been for Blue Label and for me personally, is I actually think that journey is critical in life. I think it's critical in business. I think it's critical in personal. I think it's critical in friend. It's critical in it all. That you know, it's all good and well when it's all flowing good, but really when the chips are down is where real character comes, where real character of your own family, where real character of your people in Blue Label, of your partners, of your board, and everyone comes through. And that's really what Blue Label is. When the chips were down, there weren't people pointing fingers. It was more coming back together. It was regrouping. This is our game plan. we changed the game plan to 1 or 2 year game plans instead of this 5, 6 year, because we had to get over these certain milestones. And of course, in the end, they've pulled it off. CellC is in a very healthy, good position, which I think the market needs time to understand and trust. I get that because of where it's coming from, but it's in a good position.
And during that journey, clearly there would have been people who would have, people you admire, maybe members of your board, who would have said to you, "Hey, man, you made a mistake here. You should be doing things a little differently." And what advice were you given then that was really hard to take, but actually was valuable with hindsight?
Yeah, I think the main one was, up until then, my DOA was quite free, meaning I was able to move a lot more freely. Of course, after this happened, my DOA changed tremendously. Um, no acquisition, delegation of authority in Blue Label. So things that I could do without going to certain levels, investment committee, board, whatever, for approval. So I think that was taken out from under me, which was a good lesson for me. It was a hard and good lesson. But I think the best lesson, actually, the banks taught me, funny enough, because we weren't under pressure, but they wanted to rearrange our balance sheet. So at the time, we had 4.8 billion rand of debt with the banks, and they came to us and they said that they want us to take it down to 2 billion rand. They weren't aggressive about it. They weren't, as they call it, wolves at the doors at all. And we actually sat down with them and we repositioned. We went to them. We said, this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to pay you back the 2.8 billion rand. We had 2 or 3 assets that we'd sell that weren't core to the core of Blue Label, but were great assets. The rest will come out of our cash flow. And at the time, I was quite angry with the banks in my own way, because what they were doing is they were stripping us of all our trading cash. Really, what we were going to do for the next 24 months was rearrange our balance sheet, was to fix it up. And it was something that I struggled to understand at the time. By the way, we never missed a payment to them in the 24 months. We paid back the entire 2.8 billion that we had promised them. We brought it down to the 2 billion rand, or just under that mark. I think they were absolutely unbelievable on the journey of it. And of course, with that, gave us a tremendous relationship with the banks, because we proved ourselves in the hardest time, and they've obviously been amazing to us throughout the whole process. And that's key, because, at times like that, your bankers become critical to you. And it was key for us to meet everything we said. So that was the first part of it. But the second part of it, which now I really understand, is if the banks hadn't been as hard on us and strict on us to do it, and left us with a lot more trading cash, we would have found ourselves with too much debt at times, because it took longer to restructure CellC. It didn't take the 2 or 3 years. It ended up taking us 7 years or 6 years, call it, from the time where this all started. So that was my greatest lesson, and it's a really good lesson in life. It doesn't harm to actually just become a little bit more mature, if I can use that word, a lot more conservative, fix up, and then start again. And for me, that was the greatest lesson of it all, and it was a good lesson. I don't think the banks were trying to teach me a lesson, but they definitely taught me a great lesson.
I'm just trying to think how your late mom would have reacted to this, given that she said, "No, don't ever take debt on." And here you are with a huge amount of debt. Did she chide you?
Yeah, she was great. She was just so supportive. It was one thing, it was, we try to be the same throughout the time. So, I mean, all of us, not just my mother and us, but, you do get these ups and downs, but she was always supportive. She always used to say the fundamentals are good. We used to sit with her. She was very business orientated, my mother. She was a very interesting lady. She was old school. Um, came from quite a hard upbringing in Cape Town, but she was old school, and she liked to listen, and she liked to stick to her fundamentals. So when you were telling her a bit about stories, she would always go back to her fundamentals of what it was. And I actually approached her once or twice on this exact conversation, and she loved it. She loved the fact that we were getting rid of the debt. She loved the fact that we were starting off fresh. She always used to say we got lots of time, of which we do, of course, and we had the time on our side. And of course, as I said, Blue Label was doing nicely. So it was always that pressure wasn't the same pressure. It was a pressure, but a bit different. So yeah, I think she was always just a good sounding board and just always very supportive of it. And she had a saying which she used until the day she passed away. She said, "Just let me know when I can go shopping again, please, Brett."
I was talking to Dylan Bradfield last week, who's been one of your supporters from ShareNet. He some years ago said this is going to be okay when there weren't. It was certainly not a universal feeling, and he was saying he can't wait for Blue Label to get back to doing what it used to do. In other words, the not being so focused on CellC and fixing CellC. Are you? Do you feel the same way? Are you excited now that CellC is, I suppose, the drowning swimmer is on the shore? Are you? Do you feel the same way that you excited about getting back to your original kind of focus?
I can't wait, Alec. I can't even explain it in words. Blue Label is a very interesting business. It's got good legs. It plays in the energy space, which has tremendous legs, specifically in this country where there's just so much required in the energy space, and it's not even limited to South Africa. That a model there can be replicated in a lot of countries around the world. You've got our bundling in our product space, and that was the main thing we actually did at the same time. You would have seen we rebranded to Blue Label Unlimited. And the reason for that is we really want to get away from this telcos. This word telco has been synonymous with it. I understand it. We owned it. But that was actually a big part of it. So, yeah, I think we're proud. I think we really threw the hard part, if I can put it that way. Where it goes to from here, we've told the market that, yeah, thank you, bro, that we're on a path to try and list CellC. And it's calm actually because CellC is actually performing now. It's doing good. Blue Label's back on its feet, producing cash again. So, we're in a very different position where we'll make the right decisions for CellC. We're going to make the right decisions for Blue Label. And I do look forward to the day. And I think CellC do as well. CellC need to be on their own. We would like to list it. We would like to, as we've told the market, we'd like to sell down. We definitely don't want control of CellC. We'll have an investment in CellC afterwards. But yeah, I'd like our days to concentrate 100% on Blue Label and meet once a month with CellC and see what we can do to help their business as a normal investment. So I look really forward to that day, and I think CellC will be better off for it. And I think we would have done what we needed to do to get CellC here and for the better, because it will be in a healthy, very good position. And then it allows us to focus on Blue Label, which keeps us all busy 24 hours a day. So yeah, I did go around a bit in circles, but I don't know how forward Dylan looks for it, but I look a lot more forward than Dylan to that day, I can assure you.
And what did you do at CellC? So I'm sure there are people who are watching this or listening to this thinking, yeah, man, there already is quite a lot that Brett has said that I can apply in my own life, in my own business. But when you get into the hole that CellC was in, what do I get that you looked at all the line items and so on, but strategically, was there anything that you changed in the business? And if there was, how did you decide on it?
Yeah, I think the two most important things is the first one is you got management and CEOs that are horses for courses. What I mean by that is you got different. We had we had Douglas, and then we've now got George. Different times in CellC where you require different kinds of management to get you through different parts of it. So I think the first thing was really fortunate to get George, and George brought a team with him from who had been working with him. And I think I learned a great lesson, which I thought I knew actually because I live by it, but I actually witnessed it and watched it is, you can have great businesses, but when they're badly managed or executed, great businesses aren't great. And you can have average businesses, that have great management and great executive, and all of a sudden they become really good businesses. So yeah, I think the first lesson for me was actually watching George Mendes and his team operate. They had a lot of RP, 20, 25 years in the industry, at least each of them. People, bringing them out of the places they were, because your staff is critical, right? Everyone forgets, but the staff of CellC had been in an environment that was just under pressure for so many years that eventually you also become demoralized when you come to work. And is CellC going to get rid of me, or is CellC not going to get rid of me? And these are big things. They're not small things. And he came in July of 23, and he did nothing less than a phenomenal job of fixing the culture inside CellC, of progressing and enhancing the strategy that we had. So part of the strategy had started before him, but he obviously progressed it and enhanced it. So I think the first lesson for sure is your team that runs it. Your team that runs any businesses. You got good people, you're ultimately going to have good businesses. And good people not only at the top, you need good people at the top that actually filter that culture downwards. Because as these businesses get bigger and bigger and you get into hundreds or thousands of people, you need for most of it a culture to run through it. And for me, that's the biggest lesson. The people and executives of a business can make or break any business. Obviously, these businesses have certain capability of how big they can be. But for me, lesson number one was people. And that one we got 100% right. I can say that with full confidence. And then the second one was actually just acknowledging what we had done wrong. And once you can do that, because people are too scared to do that, right? We actually drew a line in the sand. We said, this is wrong. This is good. This potentially is good. This is no good. And once we actually acknowledged it and owned it, if I can use it, then we were able to fix it, because then we weren't ducking and diving, and we weren't working out what it is. We knew what it was. We big boys. We had seen what had transpired. And that was the second lesson. And it's a great lesson for everyone. You have to own it, because if you don't own it, you can never fix it. So we had done the culture and the people, and that we got spot on, and then got spot on owning it. And once we owned it, it wasn't that it was a simple fix. We just knew what we had to fix, and we believed we knew how to fix it. And that's actually the result. And that's what you're seeing today.
And Brett, if there was a transformational deal, maybe the Capitec relationship for CellC?
Yeah, I think first of all, Capitec is what an amazing organization to watch. A very big customer of Blue Label, um, a very loyal customer to Blue Label, and actually, has been a great journey for us in Blue Label and CellC, by the way. So on both ends of the stick. But I think this is getting really interesting, and it's not specifically a Capitec, Alec. It's if you just actually watch what's going on in the world. Every bank wants to be a network. Every network wants to be a bank. Every retailer wants to be a bank and a network. So that's the power of the spectrum. That's the power of these networks. So I have no doubt in my mind that in the next 4 or 5 years, the shape of the South African market, if we want to call it the telcos or the banking or the retail, is going to be very, very different to what you see today. And you're going to see a lot of this coming together. And it's not because I'm guessing it, it's actually happening around the world as we talk. And the first one that's really happening is banks and networks. And then, of course, retailers and banks and networks. So, yeah, I think there's nothing specific for now. We have to focus, and we have focused on just what we had to do on CellC, and the path of splitting CellC out of Blue Label and hopefully listing it down the line. But I have no doubt that this whole thing is converging quicker than people think, actually.
When I've been busy reading a book called Chip Wars, which is all about, chips, these computer chips that go into pretty much everything that exists today. And in there, they tell the story about TSMC, which is a Taiwanese-based company that produces 40% of the semiconductors in the world, and how they took a view right early on that they would be the fabricator for everyone. Not They wouldn't compete with their clients. They would they would make semiconductors for cell phone operators, for not cell phone operators, cell phone makers, for defense manufacturers, and so on. But they would never. They would have very strong Chinese walls in between to make sure that everybody could do business with them in confidence. It seems to me that CellC has got a similar model to a degree. Of course, you've got your own network, but that you are doing you have a network with Capitec and with others as well. F&B, are they also in the in under your umbrella? And if you start thinking about the power of that into the future, it's almost like TSMC has become this totally dominant player. Do you see CellC being able to do something similar in a South African context?
I think it's exactly that, by the way. I think it's, you know, at the end of the day, when you have a certain product, there's only one or two places that people can go to get the product. So you have to be completely honest and transparent in this process. Blue Label did it our whole lives, by the way, Ellie, is that we were a supplier of the product to all the retailers, to all the banks. And we were transparent from day one. This is the cost, this is the tier, this is how it works. And because of that, we actually never had a problem ever because the transparency was there. The Call it the scaling model of how people could grow, and everyone was treated absolutely with confidentiality, and everyone had the ability to grow themselves. So if you, as I'm just using a checkers, were not growing, it wasn't because of the product supply of Blue Label. It was because you were doing something wrong inside you, and that's why Pep was growing bigger than you, just as an example, right? And that's the same with the network, right? You know, the Celsius of the world are going to have most of the MVNOs because it's very difficult for MTN and Vodacom to have MVNOs just because it's more of an arbitration to them. It's not rocket sciences. They've got a bigger share of
What
the
is that,
market.
Brett? What's NVMNOs?
That's like a Capitec and that's a mobile virtual network operator. So that's how you consider Capitec or you consider FNB. Now, of course, just naturally, if I'm MTN and a Vodacom, I can have MVNOs, but I just got more arbitrage because I've got the client already. So I make more on the client as a retail Vodacom than if they were on an MVNO or Vodacom. And that's not saying anything no one knows. That's actually factual, right? So I want to try protect my retail side as much as possible. In the CellC world, it's a little bit different, right? Because we didn't do well in the retail world, of course. That's why we were in all the trouble that they were from 2001 until currently, right? And therefore, an MVNO market is good for them, and an MVNO market does work for them and for the MVNO because they promote it more. So yeah, I think this MVNO market is a big thing around the world. This has been around forever, by the way. Since CellC launched in 2012, 2013, it's been around. But if you actually follow in the world now, the MVNO market in all countries can own anywhere between 15 and 20% of a country, of the market share. So MVNOs are going to be around. They're not going anywhere. And that's because they have their own brand. They have different reasons for it. They might want it just for stickiness of their own retail customer or to enhance their revenue, or they can all have their different reasons. But this is where it's shaping towards. And that's why you see networks, for example, now going completely into banking. You know, you've got a whole Vodafone, Vodacom, you've got a Momo, and really what they're trying to do is compete direct with the FNB and the Capitec, right? So you're seeing that all of this is converging, and where we sit in the end is absolutely transparently to say, we're happy to be the trip maker for you. We're happy to be absolutely transparent. Confidentiality with you goes without saying, and we will enable you to make sure that you do whatever you do. And I think it's a model that works unbelievably well, actually, in any kind of facet, as long as there's certain rules that are kept throughout the time, which that goes without saying, they have to be kept.
So you're the fabricator in the semiconductor world for cell phones in South Africa. But what about Starlink? What kind of an impact would that have on CellC and Blue Label and indeed the whole telecoms sector in South Africa if it were to come?
So I think it's definitely coming. I think it's a good thing. It's quite interesting at the moment. It's the entry level is about 1,200-1,300 rand and above. So you're already talking about a bit of a higher entry level. So it's not like a entry level which we're used to in South Africa, which is much lower. We welcome it. Remember, CellC really it bars its capacity, if I can say that, from the networks, from Vodacom, from a MTN. So if you have a satellite person and you can buy capacity from them, it's only good. So in the world of a Cell C, if it's Starlink or if it's any satellite provider, it's only good for Cell C. It just allows us to have a new range or a new version of capacity that we can buy from a different supplier. Yeah, so I think it's good, and I think it's good, and I think they all have to coexist. You have to have the networks, you have to have Wi-Fi, you have to have satellite. I think they're all going to exist. I'm not sure. Obviously, in South Africa, what's good, it reaches all the areas where people can't reach. That's the good part. The bad part is I'm not sure we have a product that's affordable for those areas. Well, at least what I've seen of it so far. So, yeah, I think they come in. You can't stop these things from coming. They come in.
And if you look back on your career, just to answer that question that I asked right in the beginning, how old were you and Mark when you listed Blue Label?
So I was 2007. I was 30 years old. I was 28 years old. Um, Mark was 32 years old. I think for sure we were the youngest. I'm not quite sure if there was anyone younger than us. Yeah, I think it's such an interesting thing because I try to do it with my kids now or with anyone, and I hear myself giving the answer actually, which is unfortunate or fortunate, but experience is everything, right? Maturity is everything, and you all have to start somewhere. And I think listing when we did was obviously amazing, and wouldn't change it. But in time, you just experience and maturity, just you do things better and you do things a little bit smarter. And I'm not sure if you did it, if we would have grown like we did. So I think you need a bit of, you need young entrepreneurship, along with the experience and the maturity of it. I think it's a hybrid in between that's good. Sometimes in the beginning, it's good not to have the maturity because you a bit braver and you go a bit more with gut feelings and you do a bit more. And obviously, for most of it, it turns out. But I think in the end, you do a circle and you eventually have been there. I've done that. I've seen it. I'm going to do things a little bit differently now. I'm going to do it a little bit more calculated now. And that's obviously where it all comes together. And then we leave it to the youth next that come in and they decide to go a little bit wild again in Blue Label as the next generation. But I think it's great. I think it's beautiful, actually. I think you need a bit of the youngness. You need a bit of the. It's actually ignorant, to be honest. You haven't seen enough, so you make decisions because you feel them for most of it, and you've got smart people around you. So it's not just that you've actually got smart people around you that are helping you with them. But it's only time that allows you to grow and allows you to see things differently and gives you the experience that you need.
Yeah, it's talking about this. My own experience was also so interesting. I remember for years I didn't take a market-related salary because I just wanted the shareholders to do well. But you guys hang on to your business, and you went through a lot more fire than I went through. Was there ever a chance that you were going to lose Blue Label, you and Mark?
I don't think so. Um, um, I think at times it was hard and there were hard conversations to be had, but losing Blue Label, I don't think so. I think if we had gone on the path of rectifying it, we weren't going anywhere in every milestone. We were going more and more backwards. Maybe, yeah, that's possible. But I think we had set milestones that we achieved every milestone. So it took longer than we thought, but we were achieving everything that we had set out to achieve. So I think that's it. I think for most of it, and I think this is important, is Mark and I have never sold a Blue Label share. We've only been buyers of Blue Label shares. So we've believed in it. And I like that, by the way, when I buy into businesses. I like it that Alex is a shareholder in the business, that Alex has got, You got sweat in the game. You've put your own cash in it. We're there for the same reason, right? So, I'm not going to make terrible decisions for shareholders when I'm a big shareholder myself, and I'm obviously your executive that's running the business. So, I think our most successful businesses in Blue Label are the businesses where we have owner managed businesses, because they're in it for the right reasons. They're in it for good reasons. I'm not saying that a CEO who doesn't have shares in the business is not in it, because they are in it for the right reasons, right? But having shares in it, it does align you with shareholders much more than people think, and will definitely in our world. So I don't think we ever were at the risk of losing Blue Label, but I think we were under a lot of pressure to ensure that we kept delivering on Blue Label, and that whatever milestones we were trying to do to swing CellC around, we were achieving. If Blue Label had gone backwards, as I said, and CellC was going worse, well, yeah, maybe then. But thank God we were never in that position.
I guess it also speaks to the quality of the people you had on your board, the people who were around you, that they stuck with you. They kept believing in you at a time that it would have been very easy. And if you take the American capitalism model, to swap management, a little bit like a football team that doesn't do well. My football team that I support, I think we're now into our fourth manager in like 2 years. It's yeah, it's to do with the board. And is there anything that maybe other boards of directors can learn from the way that your board engaged with you and Mark, being the entrepreneurs, being the founders?
Yeah, I think it's two things. First of all, I think you got to keep the support of your staff and your management, because they got to buy into where you're going so that you don't lose them. And one thing Blue Label can be proud of is the tenure of management and staff in Blue Label is amazing. Actually, by the way, I don't know how the averages work in this country, but we must be up there with the top. So, I think the first thing you have to do is you got to continuously engage with management and staff, that you're on the right track, that we're going to be good. They take a lot of punishment. You know, bonuses for many years don't get paid. There's a lot of these things. They need a continuous amount of engagement and communication, and that one I think we got really good, and I think we continuously do that well. And then, of course, you need a board that supports you. So you need to have hard conversations with them and fair conversations with them, and that's what our board has always been. It's been a good, hard negotiating board, meaning we discuss things in detail. And I think that's a good lesson for all boards, by the way. And I think it's a good lesson for all management and CEO out there, is that it's very easy to just point fingers and to throw in the towel and to lay the blame on people. It's much harder to actually back people, support people, and at least let them be innocent until proven guilty, rather than how the world likes to rather you guilty before you're proven innocent, right? So I think that's a good lesson for everybody, not just boards, is that, you know, when these decisions are made, by the way, it's not a Brecht decision to buy CellC. It's a management, it's an executive, it goes to the board. And by the way, the decision to buy CellC was 18 months. It wasn't 18 days. It was long. So there's a lot of thought put into it. There's a lot of decisions. There's boards that come in and make decisions. And that's why it's always good to support and back it when you're all there together, and to at least give the opportunity to try and rectify it. So I think the good lesson for everyone is simple, and that is, before you point fingers and you want to show who to blame, I think it's a lot stronger and much better character to lend support and battle your way out of things if you believe your team is good and you believe you got the right team. In the conversation of our soccer team, we have a great manager, we got great players, but we can't win a game. So I can't work it out myself either, by the way.
Well, what is the biggest sacrifice when you look back on your journey in business? What's the biggest sacrifice that you've had to make? Because if one wants to succeed, it isn't a question of just showing up and putting your hand up and kind of uh, carrying on. There's late nights, there's early mornings, there's missed birthdays. There's all kinds of different sacrifices that come in. But when you look at your life, what would yours be?
So you actually hit the nail on the head because sacrifice is all about time, and you don't want to lose out that time. That time doesn't come back. It's time with your family. It's time with your friends. It's time just at work to be happy. It doesn't help to just come to work and work. So I think the hardest part is not the hours, because the hours we've always done since we started when we were 18 years old. So hours have never scared us, but it's that sacrifice when the hours are intense, and then you carry it home with you, and then even if you are present at home, you're not present. So I think it's a hard lesson. I think the most important thing in building businesses and building life is, and it's such a cliche, but it's just so true. It's just you have to continuously strive to have a good balance. No matter how hard it is out there, no matter how many hours you put in, balance is everything, and you've got to try your hardest to not make that sacrifice too long. And for me, I think I did it pretty well. If I look back, that's the one thing that I look at most. And I think I've tried to make sure that I've given Blue Label 150%, and that the sacrifice of time that I've done for it all, the pressure that comes with it, I've hopefully have balanced that out to as best as I could in my own family and friends' life. But that's the one you have to watch. That's the problematic one, yeah.
Is that something that you would have said to your 20-year-old self if you could get into a time machine and whisper to Brett Levy of 20 about the way to handle things maybe better into the future?
Sure, I've thought about that so many times, and actually my answer is going to surprise you, because if I could get in that time machine, I wouldn't change a single thing. And the reason why I wouldn't change a single thing is because I honestly believe is when you change one thing, you change everything. So it doesn't help to change this part, because if I change this part, the ripple effect changes this part and this part and this part. So I live by it. I preach it, and that is, you can never. You want to change things, of course. I've had tragedies. I'd like to change things, right? But the moral is I don't want to change anything in my life, because once you change one thing, you change everything. And for the most of it, I've been really blessed. I've had a really fortunate life. So, yeah, I think it's all part of learning. I think these hard things that come our way are part of it. I think that you need them, and I think they have to be there. So, if I could go in this time machine, I would uh, I would try not change anything. I would go on this journey again with my brother. I would go on this journey again with my beautiful family, and I would go on this journey with my friends and the business world, because it's been an amazing journey, to be honest.
And South Africa, would you have had that journey here if you could have chosen differently?
Yeah, I think I love South Africa. I think South Africa just has so much to offer. I think we look at it, and there's certain things there's own goals, and we could just do so much better as a country. I think we all know that. I think we just don't want to draw a line in the sand, as I say, on certain things. But I'm fortunate enough. I've got to travel around the world on business and on holiday, whatever it may be. And you know, it's not the grass is not green on the other side. We've got something special here. We've got to try and just hopefully keep it, because you know the option of going to other countries, of course, they exist, and going to other countries is possible. But for me, I hope my kids grow up in South Africa, and that's quite unusual because young kids are looking to move or whatever they're doing. My kids are different. I got two out of school. They want to come into Blue Label. They want to stay in South Africa. So we've obviously done a good job, my wife and I, of South Africa itself. And I hope it changes. I hope South Africa becomes what South Africa can be, because I would like to be here for the rest of my life, and I'd like my kids and my family to be here. So not easy. This country, you can't make 5-year decisions. I think you got to make like 1 or 2 year decisions because things change like they change. But we have a uniqueness and we have a culture of people in this place that is quite unique to the world. So yeah, I'm one of those that are hoping that we're okay, Alex. I really do. Eh?
I had an interesting hour and a half on Thursday in a round table with business leadership, and it was so interesting because it's almost like in the news cycle, if it's good news, we don't report it, or it doesn't get reported, or it doesn't get as much attention as it should. Of course, if it's bad news, then everybody pays attention to it. But there was very, very clear signs of improvement. For instance, load shedding pretty much being over now. And we forget it's only a couple of years ago that we were throwing our hands up and thinking, would we ever have electricity 24/7? Same thing with Transnet, which is a key part of the country. And that too has made enormous strides. Again, under the radar, not too many people are noticing. Do you get a sense that it's not immature today to hope that we are perhaps turning around, that we are perhaps moving in the right direction at last? And I ask this because you're in such a good position, having gone through the fire at CellC, having seen the worst of the worst in business, and knowing or understanding what it's like to see a turnaround or the early days of it.
Yeah, I'm with you on this, and I say it cautiously, and I say it in different circles, not to everyone, but I think you can feel it tremendously in South Africa. I think you can when you speak into people, it's not nearly as negative as it was a year ago. When you watch it on the ground, as we do from the lowest LSM all the way to the highest, I think you can definitely feel it. I think the problem in South Africa is we have to build our middle class. Actually, we have a we have quite a issue in the middle class part, and that's what builds every country. And I think if business and government could concentrate on the building of the middle class to get them back on their feet, back on in a more positive light, I think then what you're saying is really true, and I think that's our greatest challenge today. I think as a whole we're doing a lot better. I think we like to be critics, so we just like to always report, as you say, on the bad news, but actually there's a lot of good to talk about. And there'll always be the bad that comes with it, but we just focus too much on the bad. We should focus on the good much more. But I think in simplicity, and it's not simple, is if we can fix the middle class of South Africa, you can have a great 5, 10, 15 years of South Africa and build up the bottom more towards the middle, build up the middle. And this is possible because countries do this and it happens around the world. And there's no reason why South Africa should be any different. So, yeah, I'm optimistic. I think business in this country is really playing a big part. I know Blue Label plays a massive part. We'll employ this year around about 6,000, just under 7,000 people on our learnerships. And more importantly, not only do we put them through a learnership, we then self-employ 100% of those people. So it's not the YES program, and all these programs are unbelievable programs, but after they go through their 12 months, they have to find a place. The Blue Label world, we actually train, we do, and then we self-employ into the energy space and the telco space. So yeah, I think we making I think a big difference in our little way, and I think business needs to make a big difference in their own little way, and government needs to come along. And if we can, well, then maybe people start speaking a bit more positively because it's not so negative anymore. We've all got those negative things; they're not going anywhere. But it definitely, to me, I see and it feels a lot better to me.
It's not a small thing at all. Nearly 7,000 people coming into the ecosystem of the free enterprise structure that we have in South Africa. It just share the journey of someone. Where would they come from, and what would they do in those 12 months, and how do they become self-employed afterwards?
So basically, what happens is we work with certain government institutions. We're actually working on another one now for over 10,000 people, by the way. So basically, what happens is we put them through a learnership for the 12 months. We have a big learning center in Randburg and online. And basically, we train. And then what we do after the 12 months is we put them back into the Blue Label ecosystem. So you either become a foot soldier for us in the electricity world, which we do collections, we call on the meters. We have a RT29, we have a RT15, where we're following, we're helping the municipalities, or in the world of the telco side, which we've had for years, where you become a reseller of our starter packs on the ground, or you become a reseller of our point of sale terminals. So we have the capability of continuously employing thousands of people on a yearly basis. I'm not sure what the level is, because on telcos there's a level, but on the energy space, as long as we can do more and more municipalities, actually, to do 500 or 1,000 people per municipality, and there's 270 municipalities, so you can go at this for a really long time. So yeah, it's a big thing. We say it often, but if you're going to live here and you're going to make money here and you're going to do, and you're going to be a critic and you're going to say, well, then at least try do your little bit to make a difference. And Blue Label always has, by the way, since the day we started with with entrepreneurs and self-employment. And I think that's where you need government and business to work together. And that, by the way, feels better to me as well. You're definitely getting much more of a conversation, if I can use that, between government and business doing things more and more together. So yeah, I think we got a good chance. I think if we stop scoring a few own goals and we start scoring a few more goals, then the next 5 years for us, the next 5 or 10 years can be really good.
Well, you certainly have shown in Blue Label what partnerships can achieve with Capitec and FNB and the many others that you have. And I guess if there's one lesson that government can pick up from that, is that the biggest partnership of all between business and government can achieve so much. And it does seem to be moving in the right direction. Just to close off, and it's been a fascinating hour. Thank you, Brett. Lovely chatting with you and catching up with you on this conversation. But when you leave the room, what do you hope that people say about you?
Yeah, that's a great question, by the way. I hope they say the right things, right? I think sometimes I used this once and it made the headlines for about 6 months, and I never lived it down. But sometimes the punishment just doesn't fit the crime in the listed world of South Africa, right? And I think we're good people at heart. I think we try to do, from a philanthropy point of view, we try to do that, and from a business point of view, we're hard business people. We do good business. We do honest, hard, good business, and I hope that people will say, "There's those Levy brothers. They built a business from 35,000 rand, because that's literally what we started with, into a company that does 100 billion rand of turnover today, which is just mammoth in its own right. They bought a business that went sour. They showed the grit and the tenacity to turn it around. And in the end, they were always Brett and Mark. And I hope that's what they say about me the most, is that Brett and Mark were always the same person to them before I bought CellC, and definitely after we please God list CellC.
Brett Levy is the co-CEO and co-founder with his brother Mark of Blue Label, and now the rescuers of CellC. And I'm Alec Hogg from BizNews.